Welcome in everyone. I know I'm a bit late on this event cycle, but today we'll be going over the Boelthor Gildra and the new Bifrost fight. Let's do Gildra first. This is a normal difficulty connect battle, so keep in mind that a 10-star run will reward you with 450,000 points. A 9-star solo is 150,000 and a 9-star multi is 165,000. Ideally, if you have a support lock unit, you run your 5 chances of 10-star a day and then finish off your points running 9-star multis. Being an old school normal connect boss, this guy has been power crept very much. If you are bringing Omega heroes, you have no CC to worry about. This guy only hits Acer, so as long as your Acer is Omega, the Jotun cannot CC him. He brings Eclipse Field, but you should be doing this quickly and not ever have to really worry about that. The front row crystals will target front enemy Acer and humans, but once again, if they are Omega, that's no problem because beasts do not target them. There's over 40 heroes on ranked, but really you don't need to get too complicated with this one. Just bring the classic top meta if you can. Always bring parallel DL if you have it pretty much. Regular lift is great for the male amp coverage to other females. But otherwise, all you need to do is bring strong light damage. Or really any damage type. I've brought this layout in order to proc double Asgard buffs, as well as bring a human progenitor buff. In this build, my Celestia is Awakened 37, so she has support lock and covers the front 3. It's a great time to go over the fact that they added in a new feature called Successful Parties. Using this feature, you can look over teams that have cleared it and see if you have the hero or not. You can also look at the gear that was used on them as well. So this is a pretty interesting feature that I hope they really expand on in the future. It's not completely reliable, as this could probably just mean you've seen the same person running over and over, as they're the most 15 recent ones. This is a great start to this mechanic, and it will definitely help you out if you're trying to team build, but it's not that everybody's completely reliable in this fact. Like, this seems like some really basic gears and whatnot, but this is old content, you can kind of bring whatever. Going over my gear, this is Gunlod's. I just bring basic bread and butter stuff. Strong light damage and Flowery Wand to help with the grounded amp. Everybody has Tenka's earrings maxed, and Heavenly Destroyer artifacts are probably the best in slot for this. If you missed out on Heavenly Destroyer, then I would recommend any Vector Blade that you have for Holy Up. You can also use Golem Blasters with Grounded Killer on them. And Silver Abyss set also had a Dark Killer on it if you missed Radiant Destroyer. PDL's gear, always start her off with an earth damage to activate her ascension conditions. Snake God Ring is a classic staple for any melee human brought. And I've given her a Mato Peach with Adonis Killer. Celestia is just strong light damage. Another Snake God Ring. Kyoka's hair clips are very good to boost skill gauge at the beginning, and I run her on Vector Blade Holy Up. I have Lofen with a Maverick Destroying, Juno's gear, Heroic Wanderer Tier 2 gear, Mechanical Pals, and another Adonis Slayer Mato Peach. Lif, as a classic, is running her SP in first slot with just more basics and a Heavenly Destroyer. And that's about a typical 9-star multi for me, about 23 to 25 seconds. And I can do 10-star in just about the same. Alright, moving on to Bifrost, which has 2 days left as of recording, so hopefully there's time for this video to help you out. I actually found this Bifrost to be quite manageable. I got a Guildie in the top 100, GG Sodo. And there are people going all out on this farm. It's kind of crazy. Alright, but getting into the battle, we have 3 ranged Dark Dwarves. Mechanism Queen Tholin and Tao Yun are airborne, while Noble is grounded. You need to bring High Chaos Field Rings if you're having trouble surviving, and note that you should be trying to use Omega only heroes. I'm not sure if they modified the kits here, but all 3 target Acer, Dwarf, Therian, Beast, and Celestial, so if you are bringing those races, they need to be Omega. With the exception of Therians, these dwarves will still CC an Omega Therian, so Therians are pretty much not a great choice here. Luckily, they do not CC humans, so you can get away with bringing non-Omega humans. So how the party layout works is each team is affected by the members of its own team, but all 15 of your heroes will fight all 3 bosses. It's not one team fighting one target at a time. So since all 3 are in the ranged row hits are very strong, or single row hits are very strong. Going through each team, the first thing that you need to have is a ranged damage up skill. So that being said, that was the first criteria that I used, and I have each team having a ranged row amp. First team has King Hell, second team has T-House Sort, and the third team brings Mariana. I did it this way on my account, that way I can still bring you Drassel as a party leader for the second team. Now with note of progenitors and party leader buffs, it's generally not good to be splitting up your elements, and that's due to elemental resonance. It's usually much stronger to bring all 5 of one element type. That's why my parties are derived this way. So this team not only gets 5 stacks of the earth resonance, it also gets the party leader buff from Yggdrasil. And in the case of party 1, I have a light unit in every row, making 1 buff of Asgard work. So after your range row amp, you should check for Dwarf. My first team does not actually have a Dwarf amp, but it works out fine for me. I could have used New Year Angerboda, but her Dwarf amp is only for other Joe tunes, so that kind of messes that up. Integrated Scorpio is not a horrible choice if you have her here. She gives all allies of her party 40% damage up to dwarves, which is pretty good. My team 2 covers Dwarf amp through Benevolent Love Hermes. It gives 40% to dwarves as well as 40% to airborne. And the rest of the coverages on this team come through Tea House Waitress Sortitia because she gives 40% to grounded for the noble and 30% to range row. These 2 units in particular cover most of the amps that I need on this team. And then my third team has the Jubilant Celine cover. She grants all allies 30% damage up to dwarves. So another thing to look for is damage up skill to dark, since they're all 3 dark types. And hopefully you're able to cover this relatively easily. This coverage is pretty solid throughout the meta now on most of the top meta picks. Volfin will cover it on team 1. She'll give all allies 30% up to dark enemies for 3 turns based off her ascension condition when she action skills. And PDL will give dark damage up based on her A2. If you don't have A2 PDL, you won't be able to get the 50% damage up to dark element enemies. You'll have to find some other way to get that. And team 3 has Jubride Sangrid. She gives all allies 50% damage up against dark enemies at base, so you don't even need dupes for her on that one. She's just so good. And her banner still is up at the moment right now. It's a really good one to try to grab. But other than that, it's usually not too difficult to cover grounded and airborne killers. You can find those all over the place, and the altitude killers are the easiest ones to cover on accessory if you do miss them, because you should try to get grounded and airborne both. And finally, look for your gender amps. Female amp coverage is provided by King Hell on team 1. He gives all female allies 40% up, and then Lif is genderless. Integrated Lif gives her own 50% to female and male amps, so she doesn't need any coverage from King Hell. Team 2 gets female amp from PDL, and Team 3 gets female amp from Drew Brideson. Now, male amp is going to be the harder one to cover. Regular Lif would be an option there, but there's only one male noble through the 3, so it's less important than female amp. It's more of just a nice to have if you can bring it. The way I brought it on my other teams was Himari on team 3. She was one of the first free forms of male amp given out in the last collab, so she'll give herself and then the ally with the highest attack an extra 30% damage on the noble. And then team 2 has the classic Wild Rose Volfa. She gives male amp to the back 3, but then she also casts Earth Reverberation, so she can give the male amp to the front 2 if they're Earth units, which they are. So I have pretty decent coverage overall. I think the only thing we figured out I was missing was a Dwarf amp in team 1, but it works out pretty fine, to be quite honest. Now, I know it's a little disheartening if you see people who can do this much faster. I mean, there's people who can clear this in under 10 seconds, which is absolutely bonkers, but it's the power of dupes and ascensions and Primus is extremely crazy in the game now. So this is a full auto clear in just over a minute and a half, and my only other advice when team building is to put the team that you want your limit burst autoing as your team 1. That way you don't have to manipulate or change anything in the battle. It just automatically has your correct limit burst that you want. And the I-Lift burst is just the best thing for damage. It improves the run by a little bit. If I had any other team in the slot 1, their limit burst would slow down the clear. Now, I will say that Hell Bifrost modes are intended to be very late game and very gear intensive, as you have to gear 15 heroes. Here's the damage done. Lofin takes the cake in the light party. PDL slams it in her party. And Himari is actually top damage in her group, which is kind of crazy, even though I don't have any water associated progenitor buffs. I wish there was a faster way to go over all the gear, but just as in Boelthor Gildra, I believe Heavenly Destroyer is one of the best in slot, especially if you're running your Dark Killer at 12% augment. Otherwise, you only really need Dark Killer or Dwarf Killer for this. That'd be the most optimal since all 3 are those type. Garm Kite is a very strong piece here for the extra skill gauge and grounded up, extra light damage. Likewise with Lightning Glaives, it's just an airborne version of that. Wailing Demon Sword is just an insanely good choice here, as it hits the front enemy and then the back enemy row, which is all 3 enemies. So it actually hits 4 targets here on this fight. Let's look over PDL, and she's also just a classic build with the Earth gear in front, and just typical Flowery Wand is very strong World Raid gear. If you don't have that, you can get it from some of the chest boxes that are available now. This team I ran Vector Blades with Earth up, and yeah, just strong Earth hits that have multi-hit or other effects. Some extra Earth Shred with Spatial Manipulation from Tier 2 Heroic Wander. I ran Holy Knight Destroyer on her since it was one of my stronger leaf up options and gives the extra constant earth damage on top of the augments. If you still have some of those gear tickets left over from the collab, Outstanding Harvest Staff is extremely strong. I picked up a third one just to run it here because it hits all enemies and then 3 enemies again. So this is actually 6 hits on the bosses here. And then Team 3 just focuses on that water gear. Seasonal Roast Turkey was a really good pickup for the airborne coverage and then double hit. And they run some classic water ups over Abyss. And otherwise I just ran strong water hitting gears. Lightning Fast Garm is pretty good. This will help slow down their skill gauge generation to have them do their big boom burst. And anything that targets all 3, so 3 front, it hits everything in the battle, so stuff like that's very good here. Multiple targeting schemas with multiple rows associated or hitting all enemies multiple times. Those are the kind of gears that you want to be going for to do more damage. Also, things like Ring of the Shattered Thunder are very strong because you can potentially get water wound on the enemy, so this group has the potential to do extra damage. Anything that gives you extra counterattack damage since your heroes will be getting hit is good. And yeah, also like the Melty Snow Garm. I run him too just to get that opener for water wound. Helps more than you think, but that's the basics of the gear in the build. So I hope this video helps you craft your Bifrost teams and push up the rank as much as possible before the end of the event. I was actually pretty impressed with the milestone rewards as they've done major changes to them, and I feel like Ateam is finally starting to listen. So after a certain point, it becomes just a lot of high boosts and diamonds, which I've preached in other videos that's all players want. So there was actually a really nice little trickle in of diamonds for getting up to 100,000 points here, and the high boosts were really decent too. It's 100. You get a full 100 high boost by the time you hit 60,000 points, which I thought was awesome. And the ranking reward, the whole reason we're trying to get there, is a nice chunk of chalices and the sweetly decorated blade, which is going to be insane. It's going to be an all ally skill gauge generator, which I believe this will go up to 10% at skill level 5. Self Light Ring and Frenzy, and then an all enemy hit that ignores shields and barriers, CC, and Light Shred. So, and pretty good coverage as well between melee range human elf Jotun. That's pretty solid coverage. Just more light element resistant shred that's going to get added in the game. So definitely try to push Bifrost up and not miss out on this gear, because everything that you miss out on is an opportunity cost. If you're playing actively, at least try to be pushing it. I know it's pretty stamina heavy, but I still have a bunch of my stamina from collab to go through, so thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm just going to keep it short and simple to these 2 events, and I'll have more content coming out here soon, so thank you so much for sticking with me over these years, and until next time everybody, foots out. Cheers.